You never get into moods where you don't want to talk, do you?
Yeah, I do.
I've never seen one. I've never been privy. And I must tell you that it makes me feel like a piece of shit.
Why?
Because I get in these moods where I don't want to talk. For example, right now, I do not want to speak. It's going to be very difficult for me to do this show. I don't know if I could have actually ever done a full-time radio show in my life. It was a dream. There was an idea at one point. I'll do radio. I'll do it every day. But I get in these moods where I do not want to speak. And there's a mental block. And right now I'm just plowing through what feels like a brick wall.
Maybe you need to, plow through those brick walls more often.
No, it's not fun. And it doesn't often work.
Making progress and change is often not fun.
Also, you didn't call me out for blaming you. Because you like to speak doesn't mean that, it's your fault that I feel like a piece of shit.
Oh, I'm not taking that on. You're allowed to feel like a piece of shit and feel like what I'm doing is making you feel some kind of way.
Stop making me feel awful.
By being so awesome and understanding and great.
By being who you are. I can't deal with that.
Yeah. So how would you prefer me to be? Like,
I would prefer it to be like at the end of Phantom where you leave. I yell, go now, leave me.
Mm-hmm. But then you're really sad that I've left?
Sure. I just, I'd be left alone. And then make my eventual escape to Coney Island. And if it were the old Coney Island, the trash-filled Coney Island with hypodermic needles everywhere, I think that'd be okay with that. But the old Coney Island used to have boarded up storefronts right across the street from the Nathan's Hot Dog where they do the hot dog eating competition. But, now these days they have stores there called It's Sugar and a candy store's open. So it's not really the Coney Island I would like to be exiled to. Back when freaks were allowed to roam around freely and be freaks, and other people didn't get offended that there were freaks, and there were giant seagulls that looked like pterodactyls, seagull-dactyls. And that's all changed.
And now the only freaks you get are tourists.
Which is a whole other kind of freak. But okay, that's enough of that. Because we know that my mental illness doesn't play well. It's not a popular topic on this show. So we'll just move into the episode.
Let's make that an episode, though, for sure.
No, that never. It's embarrassing, is what the review will say. What an embarrassing episode.
Or people will hear it and identify with it, and maybe you will feel less alone, and so will they.
Wishful thinking.
I'm writing it down. Greg's mental illness.
Look, I view this as a job, this podcast, and I'm going to execute that job. How's that for a lead-in?
Welcome to One Topic, where we stick to one topic. My name is Autumn Fisher.
My name is Greg Russ, and this week's episode is going to be about jobs. I know that it's strange to introduce it like that because it's already in the description. People know what they're getting when they start listening, but the reason for this, it's already kind of been addressed at the beginning of this episode. I'm really not in the mood to speak, but it's not as straightforward as a job. I also find enjoyment in doing the podcast, and I take ownership of the podcast. So it's not something shitty like I rake leaves for a living, and I just do that to get a paycheck. There's no paycheck involved in this at all. So it's a labor of complete love, sometimes sometimes disdain.
And we haven't missed a week, and so I feel like we cannot break that streak.
No, we can't. So now there's pressure to always do it, even when we don't want to do it.
We could do it earlier in the week, so it's not so up to the wire like this. It's a Sunday afternoon.
We're recording this on Sunday. Also, I don't want to say that this week I don't necessarily feel like doing it because we already had that episode a few weeks ago. We don't feel like doing this show. That's not the case, and I don't want to relay that. But I view it as a job also because of the reason you stated that we've done it every week. So I want to continue that. And that just got me thinking about my jobs over the course of my life. And, I really sucked so much at many of those jobs. And, the job I have now, which I don't talk about that often. If I was talking to my job.
Mark that time so you can edit it later.
Why?
Because you messed up.
Why?
I'm just kidding. We would never do that.
I'm not editing anything.
Yeah.
If I'm going to sound like a fool, then I have to sound like a fool. Anyway.
Talk to your job.
I talk to my job at night. That's where it's gotten me. It's been very busy lately, and that's where it's gotten me. But, I think for the first time in my life, I'm enjoying a job. And I got curious in my progression. How did I get here? And I'm sure everyone else is, waiting, champing at the bit to come along for the ride. So let's start. Going all the way back to the year that's actually not true. I was going to say 1997 was my first official job. But I would cut lawns and power wash driveways long before that. As a young boy who probably didn't mow straight lines in people's yards. Though sometimes in yards I would get fancy and try to do designs, pick a center point and go diagonally out from that center point.
That's fun.
Or just cut diagonally, not just straight across. And
I would love that. Like a lawn that you could mow where you'd really see the up and down strokes of the lawnmower. That would be really fun.
Well, there was one guy in the neighborhood who had a tree in the center of his front yard. So I would radiate out from the tree.
Yeah, like a circle around it. Did you ever make like a diamond shape?
No, I didn't get that fancy. Ultimately, I was just saving up money to buy a go-kart.
And how old were you when you were doing that?
Middle school?
Would you call that a job?
It's a gig economy job before the gig economy.
I feel like that's something you did. And when I think of a job, I think that there's someone above you.
There was someone above me. I can't remember his name.
Customer. Not above you.
He could have yelled at me and fired me. He was the boss. He gave me the paycheck, the cash.
Yeah, but it's not like you had to go to... I know what you're saying. We're splitting hairs.
The cold glass of milk after a hot summer's day of work, which...
Glass of milk?
It's disgusting.
Is that true?
Yes.
They gave you a glass of milk?
Yeah, they would give me a glass. And when I was done, they would invite me in. He and his wife, they were older.
That's really cute, though. That does seem like a World War II thing. Like, here's a hearty glass of milk and a slice of pie.
They would talk to me a little bit, and I would have to drink milk after I had been sweating outside.
Yeah.
Thank you for the milk. It was probably whole milk. The thickest, fattiest milk you could get. But anyway, for the sake of this, like you said, that's a one-off job. Mm-hmm. You're not required to return several times. And, I had a goal in mind. Again, save up enough money for a go-kart that I would later execute a hit and run on. A literal hit on a person.
Yeah, a punch and run.
Yeah. He deserved it. Anyway, so the first job I actually had was Publix. That's it. That's where it all began.
Not a cashier.
No, a bag boy.
Bag boy.
A bag boy who wanted and dreamed of being a stock boy and couldn't get to that place.
Why not?
They wouldn't allow me. Maybe if I put in more time. The truth is I worked there 2 months and I just stopped showing up.
You were 15?
I was 15.
How are you getting there?
I think my mom was driving me.
Yeah. And then one day you just told her, don't take me to Publix today.
I forget what I said.
Oh, was it the Publix that you guys shopped where you shopped?
Yeah.
Oh, so they would just see you like, where you been?
I saw
You're on the schedule.
Everyone I knew also in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
People would come in. You had to wear this badge that said, no tipping. That's my pleasure. And I would take the pin off.
Yeah.
And I would take the tips when people gave me the tips. And you're supposed to refuse the tips if they did offer them anyway. And if they insisted, you would take it. And I didn't play by those rules.
Of course not.
I would smash products that I wanted. And then they would be damaged. And then I would take them home. If you worked hard, you got a chip that you could get a free Publix sub with.
Ooh.
And
how did they determine if you'd worked hard enough?
I have no clue because I never got a chip.
Because you didn't? It's because you were taking tips. Take tips, no chips.
I would just go get the sub sometimes and take it to the break room and leave it there and then leave home or leave for home with it. I was a bad employee.
Listen, it doesn't seem that hard to steal a Publix sub to begin with, but especially if you work there.
No, it's not. Publix still doesn't have self-checkouts. There is a little security in place.
Yeah.
You do have to go through a cashier, but if you're just getting the sub, That was something that I did later in life, meaning going back to the Publix I used to work at that I just stopped showing up to work for and getting a sub and then going up to the Ticketmaster counter and asking about tickets for a concert I didn't give a shit about just to distract. And it's like, well, he was up there. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he paid for that thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I would have
He stopped looking like he would steal that because he's talking to an employee.
Yeah, and then I would walk out with it.
Yeah. Cool.
Not proud, awful employee. I think any kid at any job is an awful employee and you should never hire kids, but that's the problem when you only want to pay whatever they were paying, $5.50 an hour.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the minimum wage was like $5.75 or something.
And maybe the job isn't worth more than that, but when you're hiring kids, maybe there are some kids. We can get into your job history. When I think about this, that childish behavior carried on much longer than it should have in my job history.
Yeah.
It just carried on in my life much longer and still lingers. It still exists in many ways, even though I'm working on that. But, what was your first job and how old were you?
I was 15 and it was at Little Caesars. Little Caesars. And I feel like I enjoyed it. My friend Anna, who's my sister, worked there with me and I enjoyed the job. It was a weird time. There was this manager. The owner would come by every once in a while. And of course, anytime he came by, he ruined the flow. You know how you and your employees have a flow of how things go. And then the owner comes in and then they come in and they try and do things or they step in and you're like, no, that's not how we set things up.
Well, what are you doing? Making the pizzas?
I was answering phones, sometimes making pizzas.
Well, if you're making the pizzas and the manager comes in, I assume was it a franchise owner?
Yeah, it was a franchise owner. And then the manager was, to me, much older, but he probably was 25.
Oh yeah, those jobs. That's another thing about early jobs when your manager is also a kid.
Yeah.
But you think they're so old. And
he might not even have been 25. He might have been 23.
Yeah, you also judge them for being so old and having such a shitty job.
Well, he was cool, he smoked weed and he was staying at, on 78 when you're going towards Stone Mountain and it's that in between Snellville and Stone Mountain. And it's all those car dealerships and stuff.
I'm not aware of that.
Oh yeah. That's the other side of town for you.
It is funny growing up on the opposite side of the suburbs, both north of Atlanta, but I was on the west side. You were on the east side. There wasn't much crossover. There wasn't much going over to
when I was
85. I lived up 75. You lived up 85. We stayed on our sides.
Yeah. I don't know anything about your side of town until I got a job up that way. But anyway, oh yeah. So he had problems, he was staying in one of those, super best motels. And I went up there once and it was dangerous. I should not have gone there by myself. And I smoked out, we smoked out in his weird hotel room and he really could have hurt me. And, he didn't, but he was a dangerous guy. I would never have.
How so was he dangerous?
Because
yes, it's a situation.
He was erratic. So during shifts that were busy, he would get pissed and he'd take the phone and smash it on the wall and stuff.
All right. Yeah, you shouldn't have gone up to his Red Roof Inn.
It's worse than a red. It was a Super 8. One of those things. It was really bad.
It was a motel, so the front door was actually on the outside, not the inside. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my first job. And I remember one time the owner had come in and how in those industrial restaurant kitchens, there's 3 sinks and then there's those plaques on the wall. Maybe if people don't know this, there are plaques on the wall and it tells you which soap goes in here for the soak, for the things that you need to clean. And then the second sink is for this colored soap and that's for washing and washing things off, and then the third one is supposed to be this special thing that is to help rinse things off. And I never was taught how to use those sinks properly, and I never once did it. I would take the pan that the pizza was made on and I would just spray it with that awesome hose that was above you with the great handle, you just spray it down and you just put it to the side and it dries. I never cleaned them the way they're supposed to be cleaned properly. And the owner came in once and saw me do that. And he was like, you're supposed to be doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh. He's like, what do you do at home? Do you just rinse off your dishes with you don't scrub them with salt? I was like, oh.
Is it a regulation at that point, or is that just a preference? I don't know.
That's probably a health thing. Like
I've never worked in a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
That was one thing I avoided my whole life. I had zero desire to serve anyone. No. You want to say I'm better than that? Yeah. I think I felt as though I was above serving people.
No, with your personality, you should not be serving people.
But I also don't like people serving me.
Oh, okay.
I just don't. The whole thing is uncomfortable to me.
Yeah.
At a restaurant, I thank the waiter profusely for everything because I can't stand that someone is in a situation by choice. It's their choice. I get it, but they're serving me as if I'm some highfalutin piece of shit
a king
who has better status in life. If I would go to the window myself, I mean, I guess you go to the restaurant. I don't know how to cook. That part, fine. Someone's cooking, but that's like a skill. I'm not saying that serving's not a skill. I know it is. But it's like, I feel like there's now I know there's someone who's actually the best waiter in the world who's like, this is a real skill and I've refined this craft and you're insulting me. And that's not my intention. I just feel as though people working in kitchens maybe quite often have a little more pride in their work than servers, because servers a holdover job for most people, unless you can get in some really fancy restaurant where you make $180,000 a year.
Yeah. I mean, that's a different thing.
Yeah, you're just a butler in a food service place at that point. Which again, who has a butler?
Oh, can you imagine?
No.
Do people really have butlers anymore? Like the uber rich, they're assistants and things. There's no longer, and that, like there's someone in charge of the house that I guess would have previously been called a butler, but now they're just like the house manager.
Yeah, the job remains the same. You can change the name all you want. Yeah. But anyway, I have zero intent of insulting anyone. If someone's a server and that is their job, I don't look down on that like a career that they've decided, because certainly you can get in situations where that is viable and you live a very nice life. I'm not looking down on the job. I just was not a person who could handle serving anyone. So when you talk about kitchens, I know there's a lot of regulations. I don't know what any of them are.
I'm sure that if some health inspector saw that I was just rinsing constantly these dishes.
But it goes back into the hot oven. All right, it's a pan. It's got some grease on it. You'll rinse it off, and then it goes back in the hot oven.
That's true.
And if anything's on it, it gets cooked and killed.
Yeah, I agree.
People aren't eating off of it. Dish is one thing. Silverware, it's going in your mouth.
And there were no silverware because it was just a little Caesars. It did help me learn how to spell Caesar. My instinct is to CEA, but it's SAE or CEA.
Did it?
CAE. Sorry.
Did it really help you? Now what are you going to look it up?
No, I just was looking up the next
to double check.
No, the next job I had though was another.
How did this one end? How long did you work there, and how did it end? And what did you learn from it? What did you take from it?
Nothing. I took nothing from it.
How long did you work there?
I don't remember.
I mean, for me, I agree with you. I didn't take anything from Publix other than I don't want to do that again. And that was a service job. It's not the same, but that was a service job. My next job actually was a service job, but we'll get into that. It's the closest I got to a service job.
So I have my next job as Folks, right? Which is now, is it still called Folks?
No, it used to be called Po Folks.
It was yeah. And I think I worked at Po Folks.
Yeah, and that was offensive.
Yeah.
For poor people.
Yeah, Po Folks.
Yeah, and also African Americans, I assume.
I guess. I mean, it's a lot of African Americans went there. So I don't know if they were insulted.
Yeah, I don't know the story behind the naming in that restaurant. Yeah. I'm sure there's a decent reason they got rid of the Po.
So yeah, I don't remember if I worked there next or if it was the wallpaper store. But the thing that I took away from working at Folks was how bad I was at being a server at that time. God, I was just the worst. Like I could barely handle a section with 4 tables. I just couldn't. And then I couldn't multitask. I didn't know how to, Yeah, multitask, which really is what a ton of waitressing or serving is just being able to prioritize all these balls in the air and remember all the balls in the air and, deal and like roll with the punches, deal with things, I was incapable at that time of doing that. And that one ended because I started the job. I probably worked there. It was like the 2-week training or maybe the week training. And then the 1 week training. And then, once I started, I sucked and I hated it. And then, I didn't realize that I had started working there right before Christmas and that when I looked at the schedule, I was all over because I was new. So all the other people had already requested off and gotten that time off. And I was scheduled all through the Christmas holidays. And I was like, oh, I can't work that. I will be out of town for Christmas. And they were upset with me, but I was like, too bad. I can't do it. And then during the Christmas that I said I couldn't work, I went to a Waffle House. And one of the cooks at Folks also worked at Waffle House, and he saw me and he told on me and they fired me.
He narked you out, probably, and rightly so.
Oh, yeah. I was like, cool.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably 16 because I think I was driving there by myself because I remember my mom waiting up for me to come home.
Yeah, again, the offense taken when you're scheduled on the holidays at that age. I guess because it ties into school. You're like, no, I'm out of school.
Yeah, I never even thought that it would be open or that I would have to work on Christmas, Eve, the day before Christmas Eve. Like it never occurred to me.
What was I going to say about the guy who narked you out? I don't remember. Anyway.
It was fine. I shouldn't have been working there. It was weird too. Like all the other people, of course, were like kids, all the waiters. And they smoked like in sort of one of those banquet rooms in the back, where people could go and get like a private room for birthdays or something. Everybody smoked back there. And I thought, this is gross. And there was a smoking section still. It was weird.
What a place to have a birthday, folks.
Yeah.
Unlimited.
Maybe someone bring their Nana there,
Unlimited baskets of cornbread for anyone's birthday.
Mm-hmm. A basket of chicken fried steak.
Yeah. They had fried catfish there.
Mm-hmm.
That place really was Southern. They really leaned into it, didn't they?
They had collards.
I'd never have been in a Folks.
Oh, yeah. It's not great. I mean, whatever. It's just food that's fried and probably decently tasty, but probably that corn on the cob that's like real short, those real short ones. And the corn is like kind of dehydrated looking. It's like been boiled too long or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It gets withered.
Withered-y. Yeah, withered kernels.
So that only lasted...
Oh, that lasted probably less than a month.
This is part of those jobs, though. Again, you're hiring young kids. They are going to quit constantly. I would hate to manage a place where you're hiring kids because that you're going to have headaches. You're going to have schedules that fall apart because nobody is reliable.
I broke up with my boyfriend and I can't come into work today.
Which is a very real thing at that point. Like my view on jobs has changed over the years in the sense that, if you're hired to do a job, do the job as best as you can. But when you're that age, it's an inconvenience. It's like, I have to do this. And then you have friends who, don't have to work because their parents are spoiling them. And even if it's better at the time that your parents are forcing you to work.
Oh, I know. Were your parents forcing you to work?
I don't think they were forcing me, but I was in a spot where I wanted some money to do things and they weren't just handing me money. And I wasn't doing chores around the house, even if that was a way to get money, which it was never offered. But
you get an allowance?
No. Oh. I think at some point there was an attempt. It's like, make your bed, clean your... I just didn't do it.
Right. So no allowance.
It's also like $5 for the week. It's like, it's not worth it. I'm not doing that. I'll go make the $5 an hour.
That's $20 a month.
At Publix. Or my next job. I think I forgot about PacSun, and I don't know how I forgot about Pacific Sunwear since that was my second job.
Oh, that was only your second job?
My second official job.
Yeah.
The Pacific Sunwear. What, you have a list of my jobs, which is strange to me.
I knew it's listed that way as Publix and then PacSun, but for some reason I thought, I don't know, like valet was in there before.
No, that's the next
That's
job.
the next one.
That's the one when I was a valet was the one where I mentioned earlier that it was a service job also, parking people's cars. But PacSun, and we've talked about this story before, so I won't get too into it, but I wanted to do retail. It seemed easier.
Mm-hmm.
I liked being a cashier. I liked doing stock. I hated being on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you checking out these pants. Well, here's a shirt that possibly can I help you? Can I create and curate some outfits for you? No,
Ew.
leave me alone.
No.
There's no commission either, which commission's worse because then it really forces people to do it. When someone tells you no in a situation like that, you're like, okay. Then you can tell your boss that you asked and they said no.
Mm-hmm.
But that was called to attention quite a bit. It's like, I see you on the floor. And you're not going up to the customers.
Customers don't want that. If they're holding something and they're like looking around, then it's like, hey, you looking for anything? Can I help you?
They'll come ask for the most part if they need something.
Yeah. But you can tell when people like their heads down, they're searching through clothes. They're not looking around looking for help. Leave them alone.
Shoes was the thing, obviously. Hey.
Oh, you have to get their shoes.
I have to go to the back and get the shoes. That's fine. They ask if they want shoes. If they were in the shoe section, I feel as though I would... oh, you want those Etnies, huh? Those DC shoes. Mm-hmm. Do you skateboard? No. Yeah, neither do I. We're all posers.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed, do you have other sizes in the back? No. Maybe some stores keep additional stock, but quite often people, I like this shirt, but I can't find my size. Do you have more in the back? No, we don't. We actually didn't. That wasn't a lie.
Yeah. Like, no, I stole all these. I stole all those sizes.
Yeah, so that's, as I've stated before, how that job ended.
Right.
Being caught stealing.
Ugh, what a horrible feeling. I mean, what a horrible thing to do. But also...
Again, a fuckhead kid. Me. The whole store was fuckhead kids.
Yeah.
That our manager, who was really cool, and again, she seemed so old, and she probably was 25. But when I'm 17...
Sure. I mean, yeah, the difference is...
In my mind...
That's huge.
In my mind, when I'm 17, it's like, when I'm 25, I'm going to be working my full-time job. I'll be in my career. What the hell are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And despite that, she was great. And we really just betrayed her. We stabbed her in the back. Like there were other managers. She was the store manager. You always have the one manager who's around that same age, 25, but I'm the manager who doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Fuck this job. Fuck it all. That's not cool either.
No. Especially if like you need something and they just don't give a shit.
Yeah. Being 17, I thought that was cool. Yeah, this guy's attitude. I like this. But you come to realize, like, hey, you don't like this, then leave. You don't have to be here doing this job that you hate so much. But yeah, the whole store was stealing. There were no cameras. You don't have cameras. Mm-mm. People are going to do the things that they do. Take off the security tags because people are wearing big baggy pants in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. You can hide things in those pants.
Those are my stealing pants.
You can take a split long sleeve t-shirt. It's a brand, Split, in case you didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And you can fold it and run it down your leg and cinch it with your belt so it stays up.
Wow.
And then you just walk out of the store with it until the idiot who really wants to blow up everyone's spot starts stealing money from the cash register.
Yeah, that's over the line.
Because you find out immediately. Mm-hmm. They do inventory a few times a year, and then they're like, we've got a lot of loss here. Cash register, end of the day,
Yeah. Well, even a lot of loss here can be, they account for shrinkage with every inventory, which shrinkage is when people, like, it's the allotment that they budget for stealing.
Which I guess was happening. I wonder how much was stolen under my watch. One time I was working the register. This is a different thing, but I was just thinking of where my head was. And usually I would talk to people and say, hey, how's it going? But there was this dad in there with his daughter. And I didn't greet them, I guess, when they came up. Or at least I didn't do it in a way that he liked.
The father?
Yeah, and he called me out. He's like, oh, people don't say hi anymore? And then I pretended I was deaf. Yeah, I'm not going to do the voice that I did.
Oh, you did the voice?
Yeah.
And what did they say back?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Oh. Wow. I pretended I was deaf once. Not to get out of trouble, but I was just in a doctor's office and with my mom, and we were waiting forever for something. And so I went to I was like just walking around the halls of this weird doctor's office, and There was a guy walking towards me and I just pretended to sign to him. And I used a weird deaf voice, asked him about like, have you seen my mom?
For what other reason than attention?
I don't know. Playing with the world.
Really is your stage. So Pacific Sunwear ended on a bad note. Went in one day. Regional manager was there. Come to the back. I got a call for you to take. Loss prevention dude threatening to press charges against me. I was 17 at this point. So, they could have pressed charges. Even if I weren't a minor, I don't know if they would have pressed charges. They're obviously just trying to get info. And
did they think you were stealing money?
No, they know. They figured out the guy was stealing money.
Okay.
I think it's easy to pinpoint the shifts. It's like, okay, we lost money on this day, this day, this day. Let's look at the schedules. Where's the common thread?
So what about, how did they know that you were stealing? Like, why didn't they just say, oh, the money's being stolen and that's the end of it? How'd they figure out the
Because
closing?
everyone in the store was doing it. And I think he got caught.
Oh, and he ratted you out.
Well, he narked out this other girl and then she ratted me out.
Oh, that bitch.
And the corruption that was deep-seated came to light. And they really didn't have any proof on me. I
wonder if she didn't rat you out and they did that
they could have.
interrogation
That's
tactic.
The thing. They could have.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Vanessa's told us everything, Greg. Just tell us the truth.
Even if she had ratted me out, they didn't have actual proof. But I admitted that I stole that split shirt and some necklaces, even though it was much more than that. And then they said, well, you need to bring that back. And I brought back a shirt that had been washed at least 30 times, probably. So here you go. Here are these necklaces. And then, you don't work anymore and your parents ask you why you're not going to work. And you say, I just am getting busy with soccer and school. And then your mom goes into the store to say hi because she knows, the manager. Your last paycheck's mailed to you.
Did the manager say anything to her? Did your mom find out outside of you?
I don't know if she told her straight up, but she's like, oh, he hasn't told you anything, huh? So I had to admit it, and I wasn't proud of it, and it was very embarrassing.
Were you in trouble? Did you get grounded?
I didn't get grounded, but it's not like I got off scot-free. It's like at that point, there's whatever parenting needs to be done. It's like in those situations, I quite often already knew what I did, and I did feel like shit. For whatever reason, in the moment, I wasn't thinking. Again, I'm just a
You're
fuckhead
young, yeah.
17-year-old, and I'm not thinking about how it affects other people. And my store manager once, she cried and said, I could imagine other people doing this, but you, why did you do this? And I wrote her a letter and dropped it off, apologizing. But, in those moments, what things that should have been pretty clear took an extreme action to then become clear. But, my parents, again, it's not like, whatever, don't do that again.
Yeah.
But it wasn't any, you can't go out, you can't do this. So.
I'd have grounded you.
Yeah, that was the end of that one.
Like we're taking away your phone. And
then I moved on to be the valet, parking people's cars in Atlanta. This is me then going to Georgia State University. So now I'm now in college. And the valet company was owned by a neighbor in our neighborhood that my parents were friends with growing up. So now suddenly I'm wrapped up in that kind of web. It's like, oh, he's going to give you a job. You're down in the city now and you can park cars. And the truth is I liked it for a little bit.
It seemed like you liked it. That's when I met you.
You drive other people's cars, and some people had really fancy cars. And I would have never driven this kind of car otherwise, even if it's just in a parking lot.
How do valet parkers park in those really tight parking lots where it's like you double park everybody and then the person comes out? How do you get the cars out?
It depends on how controlled the parking lot is. If there's one entrance and one exit, and you can keep an eye on that, you really would keep the cars that are blocking in other cars. You keep the key on top of the tire.
Oh.
So you could quickly move that one.
Oh, okay.
But if it has multiple exits and entrances, you don't want to do that because then someone could easily steal it, which did happen once at a restaurant.
Really?
On Easter, and it got really busy. And it wasn't because we kept keys on the tires, but when a line of cars comes in, sometimes you just have to get the car, pull it up, run out, ticket the next person, and then you catch up. And at some point,
wow, really?
Someone stole an SUV.
Wow.
Yeah, and we didn't know until the person came out. We couldn't find their car.
My God. What a scary feeling.
Yeah, at that point, it's the lot manager's problem. And, he was 24. And he had to call the owner. They have insurance for that kind of thing. But
of course.
The person who owns the car is not happy.
No, and it wasn't like, well, We'll call you an Uber home.
Yeah.
Good luck getting home.
It is interesting in 2000 how that was handled. And also, I just kept working. I was like, I'm not getting involved in that. I'm going to avoid that. But that was around the same time I was also interning at the radio station at 96 Rock, and that started to interest me more. So I stopped. Again, I did the job. I enjoyed the job. But when I was done with it, instead of just quitting like I should have, or giving someone notice, or being respectable and respectful, I just wouldn't show up to shifts. I just kind of phased out and disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah, that's shitty. And again, it's, someone who's a friend of the family, and then my parents are asking questions, and it's like, why don't you just quit?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for you to tell someone something that you feel like will disappoint them. So you just don't tell them.
Yeah, I'm just going to avoid this. Mm-hmm. Also, a few things in that job. I've mentioned this before, but one time a car pulled in, rolled down the window and said, "Fuck you, not valet parking." And then I went to their car and took my styrofoam cup and broke it up into a bunch of little pieces and shoved it into their gas tank.
And what's that do?
Yeah, you ever put styrofoam into gasoline? You can make
it is expand.
You can make like it turns into a gel.
Oh.
You can make a cheap napalm with it. But in my mind, it clogged up their fuel injector. So hopefully fucked their car.
Wow.
All they had to say was, "I don't want to do this. Do I have to?" It was a slow night. I would have said yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
The fuck you. And then someone else did something similar, but also said, "I'm just parking here in the front and you can't stop me." And in the key safe, there were hooks with screws on them, and there were some extras. And I put a bunch of those under the tire.
Oh, so when they backed out?
So when they drove away, they got a bunch of screws in their tires.
Well, they kind of deserve it. Maybe not the person with the fuel injector thing. Like, that's not cool. But the person like, "Fuck, I'm just going to do this in your face. I'm going to park right here up in the front."
All I wanted was someone to treat me with some kind of respect. Ask a question. Don't
Can I park over here?
Yeah, it's like, do I really have to valet park? I don't really want to. Sometimes you would have to say, "No, sorry," because if it is a busy lot, there is a system in place, and one car like that can throw off that system.
And you could explain that.
Yeah, but if it's a slow night, then...
And how could someone argue with that? You're like, "Oh, okay, I get it. You have a system."
And quite often this was complimentary. It wasn't forcing, like they would have to tip if they didn't have to tip. They could tip if they wanted. But yeah, that I think about when you worked in restaurants, did you ever spit in people's food? I don't know how you would do it. I don't know how I would have fucked with people's food. If they were nasty to me, I would have done gross things.
I would just do kind of passive aggressive things with people that were jerks. If they were jerks and they were ordering drinks that were like a Shirley Temple or something. Normally, if they were just a normal table or a really great table, I wouldn't charge them for refills of something like that. But then if they were dicks, I'd be like, "Oh, you had 3 Shirley Temples? That's a Sprite, and a Sprite." So, or I would purposefully like not refill their bread, like let things run out that I'd just be less attentive to them. And maybe they didn't even notice, but I didn't have a lot of those tables. Like I had a lot of people or like a lot of other servers around me that would complain about their tables and how annoyed they were with them. But honestly, this is real braggy, but I didn't have a lot of that because I was really good at, okay, so when I said, I worked at Folks, I was horrible. And then one day, many, many jobs later, I'm working at Mellow Mushroom.
What is this list of jobs? It's so long. I don't think we can run through all of your jobs.
No, I'm not going to, but way down the list. So there's the wall. Okay, so after Folks is Wallpaper Your World, which is one of my favorite jobs.
Well, that's just quickly on that. That's it's like an interesting place to work, a wallpaper store. It's a little out of the ordinary. It's not a place where most people probably would go look for a job. And I just think wallpaper in itself can be cool, looking at all the different designs.
Yeah. And there's also, I didn't know this at the time until I worked there, but there's, big books of wallpaper samples from different companies. And within the books, they have, big pages of what the wallpaper looks like. But then they also have like pictures of how they've put the wallpaper together in a room, blah, blah, just like at a paint store or something, like a Home Depot, next to all the paint, there's all those pamphlets. Anyway, but I was working there and I got so used to the different products and stuff. Like I was able to, someone would move into a house and the part of, the border that was in their kitchen where in the house that they moved into was falling down or was in disrepair or something. And then they went up in the attic and they found like one roll of the border, and they would come in with that and say like, I really like this, but there's no label, it's like a third, halfway used or whatever. And I would be able to look at it and say, that looks a lot like, Waverly something or other. So I'd take them where we had this like library of books, and I'd take a few out and I'd find their wallpaper. And it was usually like the updated version of it. So it would be a little bit different, but it would be close enough where they could like patch something or, I don't know. It's just like, that was my first job where I knew all the products and I was able to help people figure out how many rolls of wallpaper they would need based on their measurements and stuff. And I would do these orders. I don't know. I was really into it.
It's a more specialized skill at that point. So
yeah,
you're able to take more ownership of it.
And that's when I started to realize.
How'd that one end though?
Oh, I put in 2 weeks notice.
Okay. See.
Yeah. To work at Kroger. Blah.
Why
did I do that? I don't know. I don't know what my thinking was.
What'd you do at Kroger? Cashier?
I also liked that. I was tired of the old men being like, Autumn, that's a nice name. You have a sister Spring? Like, yep. Nope, I don't.
It's funny.
But I did a lot of fake, like, I know, right? But I loved being the cashier. I loved putting in the things like for the produce. And I liked the beep, the scanning.
I still feel cool at the self-checkouts.
Me too.
Putting in the produce code.
4011.
Or sometimes changing the produce code for a cheaper apple.
Whoopsie.
I want the Honeycrisp, but that's $2 something a pound, and this Red Delicious is only $1 a pound. I'll just memorize that Red Delicious code and put that in.
We sell a lot of Red Delicious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked at Wallpaper Your World, Kroger, Fazoli's, which was another like Italian, fast food Italian. A carpet cleaning call center, which was just a shit show. It was full of children and we all smoked in there. It was weird.
I love how smoking is prominent in your life and your memory of jobs that you had. And that's, the people smoked and they were cool.
It was weird. It was like a 70s office in there because people were like, kids were smoking. And, there were all these like bonuses and, like, what's it called? Like a minimum amount of something you're supposed to make, sales goals and stuff. Oof. It was bad.
So what were you, cold calling,
yes.
trying to get people to clean their car?
Yeah, like we have specials on whatever. You have to say a script. It was the worst.
I don't know how people deal with those jobs. Nonstop rejection. And again, I'm sure there's high turnover. And then every once in a while you get the person who's good at it, who really takes to it. And then it boosts their self-confidence. So they're the model, but they're also the exception. And the people who manage those places have no clue, thinking that person is an anomaly. That's a strange, weird person. Most people aren't going to take to it like this. Most people get rejected a few times and their spirit is crushed.
None of us cared. We were all just like having fun.
Again, there's that too.
And we would sing we would sing like someone would say late night, come home, and we'd all go, work sucks. I know.
Blink 182.
We all thought that was so
with
fun.
your cigarettes.
Yeah. And I came home once and I was stinking like cigarettes. And I told them, I was like, yeah, they smoke in there. And they're like, ew. I was like, yeah, I know, but I was smoking too.
Yeah, the lies that you tell. When I was smoking cigarettes and I would smell like it, my car would smell like it. My parents, no, it's just my friends. They smoke. Don't let them smoke in your car. It's okay. That was me.
Yeah.
Again, my parents had to have known. Or maybe they just didn't.
Want to believe you. Okay, so but after that, then I worked at a law firm. I was in the mailroom. We did a lot of boring shit like filing, but then at the throughout the day, but mostly the time crunch was at the end of the day, all of these packets of legal information, disclosures, evidence, photocopies of, writs and paper and letters, and all of this stuff had to go out before 7 because that was the last UPS pickup. And so the lawyers, because they don't give a shit about how much time it takes to actually get these packets put together, they would wait until the last minute until they whatever, and they would give it to me. So the person I was working with, who eventually left, and then it was just me, she taught me how to like organize and prioritize in my brain. She helped me learn how to multitask, because you had, while the copier is going and getting, you had to look at the letter and know how many copies of whatever had to be sent to this many people, and then who got the evidence and who didn't, and then and you had to, while the copier's going making all these copies, you had to, I felt like an octopus, like in a cartoon, like with all their, like an octopus bartender. That's what I felt like, with this big table in front of me, papers stacked up, knowing what I'm doing. Like, I felt so awesome and efficient in that role. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, I can be really good at something, and I'm really good at, now all of a sudden someone has taught me how to multitask and prioritize. And that really has carried over into my waitressing stuff. And that really helps.
And that's all it takes sometimes. Even if it's a job you don't want to stay in, if you can get some kind of satisfaction, confidence out of it. I'm good at this. Then, that can carry you for a bit. Again, with my job history, valet, now we're moving into my career, even though I'm working at 96 Rock for Clear Channel in Atlanta.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'm looking at my list, and my career doesn't happen for 10 more jobs.
You really do have so many jobs.
I know.
And anyway.
Go ahead.
I am working in promotions. I'm interning for the morning show on 96 Rock, but I'm also working in promotions. And that in itself is not the path I want to go into radio, but I am now in the radio station. I have keys to a radio station, and this is what I wanted to do, and this is great. And I actually am working hard, and I care, and people are noticing, like, that kid is doing a good job. And then it lasts for a little bit, because then you're so close to the thing you want to be doing, which is get on the air. But you're not there. You're driving the truck and hanging banners. And it's like, so that carries you for a few months. And I started to become unsettled. But luckily, the way Clear Channel worked is they launched that 96.7 The Buzz, which was just a small alternative station on a weak signal to try to take 99X's ratings away, which is the big alternative station in Atlanta, to make their classic rock station, 96 Rock, look better in the ratings. Mm-hmm. And because they didn't want to spend any money on that, they just threw all of us kids on the air. So it's like, right place, right time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think in a career, that's definitely what needs to happen. So if that hadn't happened, I don't know, what I would have done.
Yeah.
Because I was getting to the point where I was getting a little fed up. And I'm not saying I was right.
The bridge to where you are now.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I was right in that. Like, you do need to put in work. And I think, paying some sort of dues is fine. But I certainly would have become disgruntled. So anyway, I'm doing that. I'm also doing other side jobs at the station to make money, because they're not really paying us to do the Buzz on air.
Yeah, I think we would only get voice tracking time, right? However long it took us to voice track. Which was like an hour. Pre-recorded. Yeah. But if you had like a 3-hour shift, you were making $7 an hour.
Yeah, it was still low pay.
Yeah, it would be like, okay, you can only get the money for the actual work you put in instead of the shift you have.
Yeah, but it's also, I'm excited to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that, but I'm also running the board for other broadcasts on 96 Rock, which that's moved out of promotions. I'm now in programming and in a studio. That's fine. But, as I move into figuring out what the hell I'm doing on the air and getting more comfortable with that and trying to put together a style and meeting resistance, and suddenly you have this job, and there's this whole part of it you never thought about, that there's management at the top who just doesn't want to deal with your creative vision, and they just want to be left alone and have their lives as easy as possible. So they just tell you not to do things. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do this. Just introduce that song. It's like, I don't want to introduce the song. The song sucks. All this music sucks. It all stinks. It's like, I want to put on a show. That's the point of this. And, then there's resistance there. And as you're running the board, meaning me, and then there's a meeting one day where they say, Greg Russ is the best board op we have. And then you say, I've been doing this on air stuff for a year, and you've taken zero notice, and you're not commenting on that. I'm done. And then that's at that point when I, reached out to 99X and sent them my air check, and ended up getting hired there and taking a step, which...
That's good. A lot of that struggle pushed you to further yourself.
Yeah, and I look at that and I think that's the way to do it. People aren't going to be happy in their jobs necessarily all the time, but it's like, all right, I'm still going to keep doing this job. Now I'm in my career. If I really, even though there were times I ran my mouth way too much and I was a shit and probably wrong quite often, and management's like, who does this kid think he is? But it's like, I never pushed it too far because like, well, if I ruin this, then it's not a good place to be. So continuing to do the job until they said something. I was like, all right, you view me like this. This is how I'm always going to be viewed here. It's time to move on.
Right.
And I think that's what you need to do is make those decisions. So I go to 99X, I get hired, I do the night shift, and it's fine for a little bit. All that, no, don't do that. As I've mentioned before, Leslie Fram was my boss. I loved her because she never said that. She would say, I see what you're doing. Here's how to make it better. That's great. I'm in a great spot. This is all I could ever ask for. And then, the station sold to Cumulus Media, who has their corporate headquarters in Atlanta. And then Leslie loses power. She's still program director, but she's got people above her now. Mm-hmm. And they're, putting the brakes on the stuff I'm doing, and I'm being told again. And it's at that point, I rebel. It's like, it's not about just being on the air, just doing a radio shift.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to do this. This is a creative endeavor.
You want to stand behind what you're putting out there.
And I did. And I did what I wanted to do until I was taken off the air. And I know that we talk about this, and we have many times, how I was taken off the air, their words, for being too creative. I'm not lying about that.
I know, it's weird.
I'm still bitter about it. Maybe I shouldn't be, but it's like, it goes against everything I believe in. And I feel as though I would believe in if I were in the position of management. I'd say, yeah, let's make good radio here so we can all benefit.
Yeah, and this person is enthusiastic and coming up with things. Like you said with Leslie, she helped guide that instead of saying like, nope, it's just nope, no, it's just no.
Yeah, so while I still hold on to these feelings with that, I'm not regretful. I don't regret any way that went down. But, as I look back on the jobs before that I sucked at because I just didn't give a shit, I did care about this, and I stuck by what I cared about with the idea of how I wanted to execute a radio show. Mm-hmm. And I did it, and someone else made the decision, and they were in a spot to make the decision. I don't agree with that decision. I still think it was dumb, but I don't regret it. And from there, I moved to New York. It opened a door, though, because it was going to be hard for me to give up that radio shift at 99X, which actually the truth is they flipped it a few months after I moved, so I probably would have lost that job anyway. They flipped the format. Uh-huh. But, it opened the door. I got to New York. I got hired in New York at a rock station that had just flipped by the program director there, who didn't know me. He had no clue who I was. I sent him an air check. He liked it. I met with him. He wanted that kind of stuff on the air. Then he was fired. But then they brought Leslie Fram in. But then Leslie, in that position, didn't seemingly have as much power. And there was a vision for the station, which was like very music oriented. Mm-hmm. Which, look, the job is what it is. It's a music oriented station. I want to fight against that as much as I can. But they made their mission clear, and it's not wrong that that's what they wanted to do.
Sure.
It probably just wasn't a good fit. And I was only on the air on the weekends there anyway. There was an idea, I think, at first, to either have me or my friend Dave do nights. We were going to compete against each other. But then, before Leslie came in, there was an interim guy, and he's like, I don't really care, and I don't really like what those two do. So I'll make a decision, and we're going to give it to this other guy. Who, fine. I'm doing weekends in New York City. It's still a cool thing.
Yeah.
My voice is coming from the top of the Empire State Building. And
that's cool.
But I didn't even try to do the show I wanted to do at that point. I was just kind of resigned, and I just did this radio shift, which is not the right way to go about it. So now you're in a spot with your career where like, well, this is a good job. This is a job that people strive for.
Mm-hmm.
Being on the air in New York in any capacity is a big thing. And here I am. I can't just give this up, even though the truth is I should have just given it up. It's not what the kind of radio I wanted to do. And then I was also working at the station. At first, I was a promotions coordinator. I hated it. I don't want to coordinate promotions. Again, we're back at promotions. That's how I started in radio. That's the way I viewed it. Now, how did I get here? It also paid $28,000 a year for this full-time job. I was able to double that because the on-air shifts were union.
Oh, nice.
But it's like, this is not, so I sucked at it, and I would fight with my boss and yell at her because she would yell at me. She would yell at me first, and I would yell back at her.
What kind of yelling?
Well, I mean, most of the time she would get nasty and I wouldn't say anything until one day she pushed me too far, and I forget what I said.
Wow.
And then I went to see Neil deGrasse Tyson speak before he was a big asshole. And I just left work and didn't tell anyone, and I got off the train at the Natural History Museum, and I had a text, "You left, you didn't tell me, this is unacceptable." And I said, "I'm going to see Neil deGrasse Tyson speak. Quite frankly, it's more important than this job." And so I went home and I typed up my resignation. The audacity, though, was like, I'm quitting, but I'm going to definitely be keeping that weekend air shift.
Oh, yeah.
Which I did. And then I somehow turned this into another job in the web department. So I quit. I was an asshole, but I also created a new position for myself, making videos, like documenting interviews and performances that would happen at the station, which then helped me, hone some skills, which became the second part of my career. And then that station went away. And then I worked at Gary Knowles. We'll just kind of blow through that one because that guy was a quack doctor who believes coffee enemas cure cancer and that AIDS is not caused by HIV, that HIV is a creation of pharmaceutical companies to make a lot of money. And he was doing documentaries, and he had an internet radio station, and it was a holdover. It paid all right. I was embarrassed by it. It's not on my resume.
Oh, it's not?
No.
That's smart.
It's not on my resume.
Yeah.
That does not exist. The few things I got credits in, his documentaries, I used a fake name, Jake Mesmeyer. It was an opportunity, again, to hone some more video skills.
Oh, it's all an opportunity to grow. All of it.
Yeah. And then there was this whole scandal there where some microphones were stolen and they blamed me for stealing them, even though I had video evidence of me not stealing them. But I went into a box.
But you were wearing baggy pants.
Well, this is the thing. I felt guilty because at some point in my life I did steal. But it's like, I didn't steal this time.
Right. But you feel like you're lying.
Yeah. And like I'm getting nervous when they're questioning me, even though I didn't do anything.
I know.
But I who knows how I came off. But like that guy had security cameras everywhere. And there was like, I went into this box that had those microphones because I was looking for some equipment to help another show out. And then before I left, like I held my bag open up to a camera just in case somebody
really?
Yeah, but still like, well, you didn't steal it then, but at some point you did.
Oh.
And it was probably this other guy who's now in jail for selling meth who was working there. I guarantee it was him.
Of course.
But anyway, I got fired. I didn't care. At that point, I'd already been introduced to someone else who was working at Sanborn, which is where I eventually worked full-time for a few years. But I said, no, I'm going to freelance. I'm going to find my own way for a bit. And that didn't go so well. I blew through $22,000 in savings and was down to like $800 freelancing because I wasn't putting in enough work. And obviously I needed some kind of structure. And at that point, I was asked to work full-time at Sanborn as a producer for, branded content video shoots, commercials, shit like that. Brands want to do a commercial, but it's not a straight-up commercial.
Right, yeah. Like a tricky commercial where you don't realize you're watching a commercial at first?
Everyone knows, but yes. I mean, at the time, maybe you were still able to trick some people. And that was fine. I hated producing. But, that's when I kind of moved into my new mindset. It's like, all right, like this is a professional job. I'm a professional. I only have to like this as much as I need to do a good job. Because a lot of people in those positions pretend that they're making these Oscar-worthy films, and you deal with clients and these lackey employees who the brand is the most important. The brand and our image. And it's like, shut the fuck up. You don't care. I've had this reaction before when we talked about commercialism, so I don't need to go deep into it. But I was like, just say, this is my job. My job is to look out for the brand. I will do that. It doesn't need to become your life.
Right. You don't have to try and trick me into believing that you love this thing.
I think they're tricking themselves into believing that.
Maybe it's the only way they can really protect the brand.
Well, because there's this idea that your career is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I battled with that for a while, especially in radio. And if you're lucky enough to have a career that you love, I still don't think it should become your identity. There are many other parts of life.
But it can become a larger part of your identity.
Yeah. But most people end up in careers that aren't what they thought they were going to be doing. I'm in a spot now where now I work for, I don't talk about it a lot. It's no reason. I don't think I say anything nasty on this show. But, I work for Group 9 Media, and they own the Dodo.com and now this News and Thrillist and, it's websites that people go to. Yeah.
Yeah. I love all those things.
People go to these websites and there's video content. And in a weird way, I'm more detached and okay with it because I think that there are people who wanted to be filmmakers who found themselves in this, and it's not their expectation. To me, it's like I never thought about making films or doing video, and I have a job at this company, and now it's the same thing. It's like I care about this as much as I need to care about it, meaning you pay me, and I feel fairly compensated, and I will do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that because my identity isn't wrapped up in it. And also the job itself, where now I'm a supervisor, which is something I thought I never would want to do. It's like, I don't want to manage people. I want to be left alone. Like, when I went in, I was an editor, and I like editing video because it's one task and you're left alone for the most part until you deliver a cut. Then people give their feedback and I would get angry. It's like, this is great as it is. Your feedback's dumb in my mind.
Yeah.
But I was able to just put that aside. It's like, okay.
Okay.
Because again, it doesn't really matter that much.
Right. Well, maybe that's healthy. That's a healthy separation.
But, because I was a producer, going back to Sanborn, I hated that, by the way. Producing is just too much work.
Yeah. It's a long day, right? It's long days.
You're responsible for too many things. Like you're talking about the law firm. You got good at that, but I wasn't good at handling all aspects and all the people and the moving parts. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I just did it to make some money until that company shut down and I got let go. But now it's like, now I'm in a spot where I actually feel like my job is more so looking out for the people who work for me, with me. I don't even like the power dynamics. I don't want to talk about it like that.
Right. But because you don't, because it's not a fully a part of your identity, it doesn't take up all of your identity. And I think you enjoy looking out for people. I feel like that's the perfect place for you to be.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's turned into this thing that I never even imagined that I actually do get confidence and fulfillment out of. And I'm becoming better at, when you're younger, also in careers early on, you're scared to ask questions for whatever reason, like as though maybe some managers are assholes and they would hold that against you. But
that's true, like treating you like that's a dumb question.
Yeah, it's like ask questions. If you feel overwhelmed, tell me. It's like people are people. They're not cogs in a fucking machine.
Right.
And I'm able to understand and look out for people. And yeah, that's something that I am enjoying. So, that is the progression so far. And then the creative stuff, I do things on the side, like this podcast, even though I didn't want to talk at the beginning.
Now all you've done is talk.
I know. You haven't spoken for like 30 minutes because I realized like we were so deep into the podcast and I wasn't even into the career part.
Yeah.
So I just let's just fly through it, the back and forth, and we'll get to yours to wrap it up. But that sounds like, let's just fly through it. Because the point of the show to me was like the progression. And I'm sure it's the same for most people. This isn't revolutionary thought process here. But, early jobs suck. You probably sucked at those. You found something you liked, then you did a better job. But then you found out the thing you liked came with all these things you didn't expect. And all these people you had to deal with, and you had to figure out a way through that. And some people, I think, never get through that. And then they're just miserable their whole lives. And then hopefully, though you can find a place where there's balance and you can find some peace in what you do and balance it with things that you do like if you're not getting all of those met in your job in other parts of your life. And even then, it's still a battle not to be miserable. But it's maybe the best. And, as jobs go, that was the point of this.
Well, and
I found the arc to be interesting.
A lot of people, I think that your experience and my experience are not based on what we did in college. What we were doing.
What, dropout?
Well, whatever you know what I mean? Like the path that is sort of sold to you as a kid is in high school or whatever, is that you'll go to college after high school and you'll find your career and you'll start your career based on what you did in college. And I think that that's a lucky group of people that happens for, and they're happy doing that. Like they've chosen well, I guess, what they want to do in college, or maybe they've just like been lucky and chosen something that happened to work out for them or that they liked, because people coming out of high school don't always know what they want to do. And so they choose something, and then what if it's a good thing and then they get the job in that field? That's great. But like I said, I think it's a small percentage of people where that either actually happens or they're actually happy. And I think with us, I went to like a trade school, like a local college in Lawrenceville after high school. I didn't finish. I quit school to be an intern for the regular guys on 96 Rock Clear Channel. And that's how I got into the promotions work there. That's how I got on air on the Buzz, like you, except you were much better at it. I got into some voice work, and that's where Eric and I, formed our relationship, and you and I formed our relationship, and me and Tim formed our relationship, and English Nick. Like, this is where I met everybody. But then, the regular guys were thrown off the air, and that's when Eric started his Mad Pundit thing. So that's where like some of these seeds were planted, I think, with these like long-lasting oak trees now of friendships and relationships. And
also your career. Now you're on the show with Eric.
Yeah, but I skip. But then there's a lot of time in between where I start doing other things, and I don't get back into sort of an entertainment.
Which is that? What did you even want to do?
I don't know.
You were aimless.
No, I wouldn't call it aimless. I would say I was open, and I think that's what some people need. You know what I mean? There's this girl I met once who was, she was in college. She was at some like dinky little school going to college. She got an opportunity for a summer, or maybe to take a semester off to go work on a cruise ship. And then she would come back to school, and I was telling her, I was like, you've got to do that. You know what I mean? School will always be there. You're dedicated to go back to school. That's fine. And listen, even if you don't go back to school, if you find something, you'll be a lot, it'll be like a huge life experience for you. She still lived in the town where she grew up, where her mom and dad are down the road. You know what I mean? I was like, get on that cruise ship and go. She didn't. She stayed. Because people are afraid, and people think like, well, I'm in school, and so I have to stay in school, and I have to get a job in this field because now I've spent all this time and effort getting into this major or whatever, and now that's no. Sometimes you need experience in your life to know how to be happy in what you're doing, or how to find what makes you happy in what you're doing. So I was all about just like, let's go. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to quit school. Fuck it. I'm going to wake up at, 3:30 in the morning to get down to Atlanta from Lawrenceville every weekday and be treated like shit by the producer of that show for however long, and then not make any money and like put my rent on credit card, like build up some $5,000 debt at 20 years old. Like, great, let's do that. Is that good on paper? No. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here with you. I wouldn't be on the show with Eric, because I would never have given myself that opportunity. And I think that experiencing your life is much more important. And then you've experienced life, and then you know how to find and get yourself into a career, or just so you can make money as an adult and be happy.
It is interesting that you never know where things are going to go. And like you said, at some point you have to get yourself just in a position, right place, right time, especially early on. I feel as though
sometimes getting yourself into that position is scary or may seem reckless, but could end up being either gaining experience, life experience, having a story to tell, and,
but it's it's hard when you're that young
Mm-hmm.
because you're impatient. And there's this idea that you talk to people in like their mid to late 20s and they're freaking out. I should be further along in my career. I'm failing. I get it. I felt the same way. Like when I talked about this period of freelancing, it was more so as like, I don't know what I'm doing. Radio's done. The station's gone. I need to figure out what I want to do. And I felt like a loser. I was like 29 years old. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing now. I'll just freelance. And then I just ended up doing nothing because I shut down, which is childish. But yeah. And then you realize as the time goes on that some of these things come back. I mean, the fact that I've never actually been out of radio fully. Like even when the station went away in New York, this one guy who did a specialty show on Sunday nights who was doing a show that he wanted to do. It was like a free form radio show and it was music centric, but because it was his idea and it was not just being done because that's the way radio was supposed to do. And I was co-hosting it with him, but I was like the color commentary. I didn't need to know shit about music. I enjoyed it. And he got that station on some smaller stations in the New York area. And I continued that for a few years. And then I kind of got tired of that though. I mean, it's his show and I was having to commute to New Jersey. Then that's about the time Eric started up the Basement podcasts. And then I did that. And obviously I've been joining the show on WSB twice a week and it serves that need. Like the truth is if I were working on that show full time, I probably would not be so comfortable to put it lightly. Just because it's Eric's show and that's fair. But it's like, I don't want to be there constantly for his show if I can't have some creative input. So right now it serves that purpose and it's great. And I love it. And, that goes back to your point, though. It's like things that happened years and years ago and come back. When you're younger, too, it's like, don't burn bridges. You hear that? Like, fuck that. I'm burning this bridge. I'm burning that bridge. This person's an idiot.
Yeah.
And whatever bridges I did burn, they probably weren't in an industry, especially like radio where there's such turnover and people are all up. You never know who you're going to run into again, even if it's a person you don't like and they could have influence on whether or not you get a job. But for the most part, I burned those bridges. Like, that's not a person I want to know anyway.
Right.
So, still not probably.
You could run into them in another job in that industry, and you wouldn't be happy working with them anyway.
Yeah, it's still not the best thing to do.
But. Of course. So after I was an intern, I was also working at a daycare center, which I was just fabulous at. Just kidding. And I was in promotions, doing the buzz. I was doing some voiceover work. That was really, I felt like I love this voiceover stuff. But voiceover, when someone needs you something quick, is real easy. But then getting into like the business of voiceover is just like not as hard, but really hard, like being an actor and being successful.
Well, it's highly competitive. And now it's very easy so everyone can just do it from home.
Yeah.
And so now you have even more competition.
And my voice isn't like a great, like announcer voice. It's not that. It's more personal and it's something, but it's not something that could go across a billion different spectrums of voiceover work. But anyway, which is fine. We worked it out. Worked at Mad Pundit with Eric Von Hessler. Worked at a law firm again as a secretary. I kind of left them in the lurch. But Tim, who was a promotions director at 96 Rock, helped me out by giving one of the lawyers there like tickets to the Eagles or something. As like, I'm sorry. Because I started working there under the pretense that this was going to be like a long-term thing. They were going through many secretaries and they didn't want, it was really just a front desk job. They didn't want to have like a bunch of turnover. And I told them, I was like, yep, I'm in. But then I was not in. So I fucked them up. But hopefully the Eagles tickets helped. And then I worked at Starbucks, which I loved. I just told you that this weekend. You didn't know I worked at a Starbucks.
I never knew you worked at a Starbucks.
Yeah. I loved the drive-through. People hated being on drive-through, and I loved it because my thing is I like pleasing the hard to please, And I feel like if I can't please the hard to please, then they're just assholes. You know what I mean? Like, put me in and I'll do it. So anyway, I loved that job. I worked at this place called Planet Jam, which was just like a content creation for different radio stations across the country. And I also answered customer service emails that people would email through those websites. And I created these games that they would play and sweepstakes. And it was great. From there, I worked at Mellow Mushroom, where that's when I learned that I was actually a great waitress. And one day I was serving these two people on a date, and the woman said that I was too good to be working there and I should come work at the W with her as a cocktail waitress because I would make a bunch more money and I was good at my job. And I was like, okay. So I checked that out, and then I started cocktailing over there. It was the one in, it wasn't really the W hotel that you think of now, where like the cocktail waitresses at other W's were like high heel shoes and tight dresses and real short skirts. I was much more of a like, I'm just going to wear all black and be cute. I wasn't wearing high heel shoes or being sexual in any way. And I think they wanted me to be, but I never was. So maybe they didn't like me, but that was a really fun job. That's where I did a lot of drinking. That's where I really got my drinking bones, was that job. And that was really fun. So I worked at W, and then I stopped working there and worked at this place called Wahoo in Decatur. I was also really good at that job. That's the job I was telling you about, where it's like there were these other girls who were waitresses bitching about tables, and I was like, not mine. I got all the good tips because I'm a kick-ass waitress. Then I worked. Oh, and then I graduated. I started going to school at some point after that Planet Jam job.
After 17 jobs?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, maybe I'll focus a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I don't say that judgmentally.
No, it's true.
It's just funny. As you sit here, I'm not commentating on much of this because I know there's so much on your list. It's like, I'm just going to let you run through.
There's just a couple more.
Well, it illustrates the point. Like, it's like, you're doing a lot, and you're like, it still turned out okay in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you think, I'm in my, later 20s, and a lot of my friends are married and have a kid, or they've bought a house and stuff.
I'm not doing that. I'll do that in 3 years.
I know.
But
well,
okay.
I felt like too late already. But anyway, so I decided to go to school for linguistics, and it was good because it mixed two things I liked, which was language. I thought was cool. I didn't know much about what that meant, and also dealing with people, because you got to a lot of linguistics. You think it's just like learning a bunch of languages, which that's not what it is. It's about looking into like the use of language. And there's a lot of field work that you can do if you become like a scientist in that way, that you can like interview people. And so I was interested in that. Anyway, I graduated with a linguistics degree and a sort of a minor sort of in sign language. I continued to learn more sign language, but I started teaching English as a second language at this place called ICT. It was a tech school. It was a weird company to work for. They seemed a little less principled than I would enjoy. I would like.
They just wanted money.
They wanted money, and they financed people's student loans, like their own, like they had their own bank. Okay, and they would sign students up for like 4 years as like a loan, and if you didn't graduate, then you would still owe all the they're gross. They're preying on people who want to learn English to better their lives. But they're foreigners,
well,
and they didn't.
They're living the American dream. I came to America and took advantage of other people. I've really got it figured out. I'm a real American now.
Oh, I'm saying no, not the people who owned it were foreigners. The people that were there were foreigners.
That's what I
felt
mean.
like they were being taken advantage of.
That's what I just said. They're preying on these people who want to learn English to better their lives.
Yeah.
It's gross. I did misunderstand you, and I thought that you meant that the owners were also people that moved here and started that school.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I loved that job. I loved hearing their stories, and it was really, I'll just say this last, I know we're almost done. The thing that I got the most out of that job was that people who don't speak English aren't new to this country. Some of them have been here for 20 years, and they're extremely conversational with you, but they can't right. Like they can't spell things. They don't know what certain things are called at the grocery store and are confused by stuff like that. And people who don't speak English coming from another country who are in this country working as janitors were like pilots in Brazil, or were dental assistants in Argentina, and it's crazy that to have that kind of education and background and then to come to another country and have to do like menial jobs because you can't speak English. That was really eye-opening for me. And then Eric, I was pregnant. Eric approached me after his job ended and asked me to come into his basement and start doing the show with him. And that's how the Von Hessler Doctrine started.
Now you're here at his mercy for, however much longer he does the show.
Yeah.
And you'll still be young.
Just shutting up and doing voices.
And you'll be working age when he retires, and you have to figure out what to do next.
Yeah. So, hey, you know what? As long as I stay open.
The journey continues.
That's right.
Your journey of endless jobs continues.
And I also have added to that by door dashing. So
yeah,
within my job, I'm starting another job, door dashing.
In general, it has changed in the sense like my dad worked for the same company his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work like that anymore. People are always all over the place. So that's just become a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting, and you're prepped for it. People get unsettled when they have to go find another job.
Of course.
You look at a list, and you're like, I've had 50. It's fine.
It's unsettling. People want security and, calm waters. But sometimes the choppy waters are the ones that make you stronger.
Yeah, if they don't drown you.
Well, that's true. All right. Thanks for listening to One Topic. I hope you guys liked this one. I liked this one, even though, Greg, I feel like it really turned your mood around.
It's fine.
Well,
don't just end it.
Okay.
You can't, even if my mood's turned around, the moment it's called attention to and I have to start speaking to it.
Oh, what a baby. All right. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe, rate and review. Please leave a review on iTunes. We like to see those numbers.
No, only a good review.
We like to see those numbers go up.
I don't want any review.
And then check out our sponsor, hoffandpepper.com. Get some really great tasty hot sauce. They have lots of different kinds.
When we say that they're our sponsor, sorry, I know I told you to wrap it up. We don't make money off of it. We've never seen a dime from them. It's just because Autumn's best friends with the owner.
Yeah, we're supposed to get money from it, but I'm not asking.
I also just assume that maybe people aren't going because I put the commercial at the end of the episode instead of the beginning.
Put it at the beginning on this
No,
one.
I'm not putting, no.
Use the code OneTopic15 to get 15% off. The holidays are coming. The gift of hot sauce.
Yeah, if you've made it to an hour and 20 minutes in, listen to the Hoff and Pepper commercial and
just a little bit longer. Listen through to that commercial and buy someone you love some really, honestly, really great hot sauce. Bye. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Autumn.
Do you like hot sauce?
I do like hot sauce, but I'm getting pretty bored of my regular Texas Pete or Tabasco. I'm looking for a local sauce without any additives or extracts. A company that uses local peppers so it's as fresh as possible, and a company that really cares about the integrity of the sauce and where their ingredients come from.
Definitely.
And hey, while we're at it, I don't want a sauce with too many ingredients. A lot of other sauces out there, they have all kinds of fillers. So I'd love to find a sauce with, I don't know, let's say no more than 5 ingredients. I mean, it's crazy, but there's gotta be a company out there that hand processes their sauce. Bottling and labeling every bottle themselves. I'm probably asking a lot.
Well, you really are, but there is a hot sauce out there who only uses 5 ingredients.
What?
0 fillers, additives, or extracts, and who bottles, labels, and packages everything themselves. It's called Hoff Sauce.
What?
They're a small batch hot sauce company out of Chattanooga, Tennessee that's won Best Louisiana-style sauce in the country. How many times? Not once, not twice, 3 times.
3 times!
How does that sound, Greg?
I think that sounds amazing.
You know how you can get your own bottle of hot sauce?
No, tell me please now.
Hoffandpepper.com. And not only am I giving you the gift of the best hot sauce that you'll ever taste, I'm going to give you 15% off if you use the code ONETOPIC15.
Hold on, that's...
Yes, get a pen and paper.
One topic 15.
Good. That's ONETOPIC 15, all squished together at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order and your life will be better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.